The fluorescent lights of St. Mary's Hospital buzzed faintly above me as I walked through the sterile, cold corridors that seemed to stretch endlessly. My heart pounded in my chest, not from exertion, but from dread and anticipation. It had been 5 long years since I last saw Molly. 5 years of silence broken only by the occasional whispered rumor about her condition. The nurses at the front desk gave me wary glances as I approached, their eyes narrowing slightly when they realized where I was headed. Room 317. Molly's room. I hesitated outside the door, my hand trembling as it hovered over the handle. What if she refused to see me? What if she was worse off than I'd imagined? Taking a deep breath, I pushed the door open, only to find her sitting by the window, frail and pale, her once vibrant presence reduced to a shadow of its former self. Her gaze met mine, and for a moment time stood still. "Molly?" I said softly, my voice cracking under the weight of unspoken emotions. "Please, don't turn me away." She shook her head slowly, her lips curling into a bitter smile. "You shouldn't have come," she murmured, her words laced with both anger and sorrow. "You don't want to see me like this." But I couldn't leave. Not now. Not when the stakes were so high. Beneath the surface of our strained reunion lay a deeper, darker purpose. I needed her help. The hospital, a place that had once symbolized healing, was now a labyrinth of secrets and corruption. Drugs were disappearing, patients were suffering, and someone within these very walls was profiting from their pain. "I know we're not on good terms," I admitted, stepping closer despite the tension radiating from her. "But something terrible is happening here, Molly. Something bigger than us. And I can't do this alone." As I spoke, I noticed the faint flicker of fear in her eyes, quickly masked by defiance. She didn't trust me. How could she, after all this time? But I could see the spark of curiosity beneath her guarded expression. Whatever bond we once shared might be fractured, but it wasn't entirely broken. And in that fragile connection lay my only hope. The memory of that fateful day 4 years ago still haunts me like a ghost I can't shake off. It was the mall fire, a catastrophe that left dozens of people severely burned and screaming in agony. As a doctor, I had seen pain before, but nothing could prepare me for what unfolded in those chaotic hours. The victims needed painkillers, desperately, but when we opened the pharmacy cabinets, they were nearly empty. Panic spread through the hospital faster than the flames that caused it. Nurses scrambled to find alternatives, but there simply weren't enough supplies to go around. That night, I watched helplessly as patients writhed in unbearable suffering, their cries echoing down the sterile hallways. It wasn't just negligence, it felt deliberate, calculated even. I confronted Dr. Donald Wright immediately after realizing the gravity of the situation. He stood there, calm and collected, explaining away the shortages with vague terms like shipping errors and paperwork mistakes. His tone was smooth, almost rehearsed, as if he'd anticipated my questions. But something about his demeanor didn't sit right with me. When I pressed him further, demanding answers, he dismissed me with an icy stare that sent chills down my spine. Still, I couldn't let it go. Over the next few weeks, I began digging deeper into the records. What I uncovered chilled me to the bone. Every department in the hospital had been ordering medication at alarming rates, far exceeding normal usage. Yet despite these massive orders, the shelves remained disturbingly bare. Where was all the medicine going? Then came the whispers. Hushed conversations among staff members who dared not speak too loudly. Some claimed Dr. Wright was funneling drugs out of the hospital illegally, selling them on the black market for personal gain. At first, I refused to believe it. How could someone so respected, so seemingly dedicated to his patients, stoop so low? But the evidence kept mounting. One late evening, while reviewing old invoices, I stumbled upon a pattern. Shipments arriving regularly, only to vanish without explanation shortly afterward. My stomach churned as pieces of the puzzle started falling into place. This wasn't just incompetence. It was a well-orchestrated scheme designed to exploit the very system meant to heal. When Molly heard about my suspicions, her reaction surprised me. She didn't dismiss them outright or call me paranoid. Instead, she grew quiet, her eyes clouding over with unease. "It's been happening for years," she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Everyone knows, but no one dares to say anything. They're afraid of what might happen if they do." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Fear had silenced everyone around us, allowing this corruption to fester unchecked. And now, here I was, standing at the edge of a dangerous precipice, torn between exposing the truth and risking everything, including my career and possibly even my life. As I pieced together the timeline of events, I realized how deeply entrenched this conspiracy ran. It wasn't just about missing medications anymore. It was about power, greed, and betrayal. Every new discovery pushed me closer to the brink, forcing me to question whom I could trust. Even Molly, whose judgment I valued more than anyone else's, seemed hesitant to fully commit to uncovering the truth. Was she protecting herself or someone else? The weight of uncertainty bore down on me, threatening to crush my resolve. But one thing was clear: I couldn't turn back now. Not when lives were at stake. Not when justice hung precariously in the balance. As the hospital lights dimmed for the evening shift, a plan began to take shape in my mind, one that felt equal parts reckless and necessary. Abraham Zillman was our key. His proximity to the warehouse made him an invaluable asset. The old man might have been frail, but there was something sharp about him, a keen awareness of his surroundings that came with age and insomnia. "Molly," I whispered urgently as we stood by the window overlooking the parking lot, "we need to talk to Abraham tonight." Her eyes widened slightly, betraying her unease, but she nodded after a moment's hesitation. "Okay," she said softly, "but we have to be careful. If anyone finds out what we're doing—" She didn't finish the sentence, but I knew exactly what she meant. We were playing with fire, and one wrong move could burn us both. The next morning, I approached Abraham's suite with trepidation. He sat in his armchair, glaring at me over a bowl of what appeared to be disgustingly bland hospital soup. "What do you want?" he barked, though I detected a flicker of curiosity beneath his gruff exterior. "I need your help," I admitted, pulling up a chair without waiting for an invitation. His eyebrows shot up and he smirked. "Help? From an old man like me? You must be desperate." I ignored his jab and leaned closer. "Have you noticed anything unusual at night? People moving things around?" For a moment, he just stared at me, then his expression shifted. His eyes narrowed and he leaned forward conspiratorially. "You're not crazy," he muttered. "Those orderlies, they drag stuff down the hallways late at night. One time, they shoved me into a closet when I tried to confront them." A chill ran down my spine. This wasn't just idle gossip. It confirmed everything I'd suspected. Molly joined us later that afternoon, bringing coffee under the pretense of checking on Abraham's health. "Tonight," she said firmly, "I'm taking the night shift." I'll keep watch near the warehouse. My stomach churned at the thought of her being alone in such a dangerous situation, but I knew better than to argue. Instead, I squeezed her hand reassuringly. Be careful, I murmured. Promise me. She gave me a small smile. I promise. That night, the hospital seemed eerier than usual. Shadows stretched long across the corridors, and every sound echoed ominously. Molly texted me updates from her post. Nothing yet. It's quiet. But the silence only heightened my anxiety. Around midnight, her message tone buzzed again. They're here. My heart raced as I read her words. According to her, a group of men had arrived pretending to move bodies due to a supposed refrigerator malfunction, but their movements were too deliberate, too coordinated. They weren't just transporting corpses, they were smuggling crates filled with medication. Molly stayed hidden, documenting everything on her phone while praying no one would catch her. Suddenly, her texts stopped coming. Panic surged through me. Something was wrong. I could feel it in my gut. Grabbing my coat, I hurried toward the warehouse, ignoring the voice inside my head screaming at me to turn back. When I arrived, the scene was chaos. Molly pinned against a wall, her phone clattering to the floor, and the men shouting angrily. Without thinking, I lunged forward, yelling for them to stop. What happened next unfolded in a blur. Flashing lights, sirens wailing, and finally, the relief of seeing police officers storming in. Someone had tipped them off, though I still don't know who. All I cared about was that Molly was safe, and that justice might finally prevail. The tension in the air was palpable as Molly and I stood frozen, our cover blown. The group of men we had been watching, those who were smuggling drugs out of the hospital, had caught us red-handed. One of them stepped forward, his face twisted into a sneer. You think you're clever? He growled, grabbing Molly by the arm and pulling her toward him. My blood boiled, but I forced myself to stay calm. Any sudden move could escalate this into something far worse. Let her go, I said through gritted teeth, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. He laughed bitterly, tightening his grip on her. Or what? You'll call the cops? They won't even know where to look. It was then that one of the other men spoke up, his tone icy and commanding. Enough games. Who sent you? His eyes narrowed as they scanned us, searching for any sign of weakness. It dawned on me. These weren't just ordinary criminals. There was someone higher up pulling the strings, someone with power and influence. That's when it hit me. Dr. David Gibson. Everything clicked into place. The missing medications, the late-night shipments, the fear among the staff. Gibson wasn't just complicit. He was the mastermind behind the entire operation. I glanced at Molly, silently pleading with her to play along. She nodded almost imperceptibly, her expression a mix of fear and determination. We didn't tell anyone, she lied smoothly, her voice trembling just enough to sound convincing. We were curious, okay? We thought maybe we could get a cut. The man holding her hesitated, clearly unsure whether to believe her. But before he could respond, another figure emerged from the shadows, Dr. Donald Wright. For a moment, everyone froze. Even the thugs seemed taken aback by his presence. Let them go, Wright demanded, his voice firm and authoritative. The leader of the group smirked. And why should we listen to you, old man? Wright didn't flinch. Instead, he stepped closer, his eyes blazing with resolve. Because if you don't, I'll make sure this whole operation comes crashing down around you. And trust me, you don't want that. To my astonishment, the men exchanged uneasy glances before reluctantly releasing Molly. As she stumbled back toward me, I wrapped an arm protectively around her shoulders. Once we were safely outside the warehouse, Wright turned to us, his expression grim. "I've been trying to stop Gibson for years," he confessed, his voice heavy with frustration. "He's been exploiting the system, using his position to funnel drugs out of the hospital while framing others to take the fall. I've gathered evidence, but without solid proof, no one would believe me." Molly looked at him incredulously. "Why didn't you say anything sooner?" she asked. Wright sighed deeply, because Gibson has eyes everywhere. If I made one wrong move, it would be over. Not just for me, but for anyone who tried to help. As Wright explained further, the pieces of the puzzle fell into place. Gibson's greed knew no bounds. He had orchestrated the shortages 4 years ago during the mall fire, prioritizing profit over human lives. Meanwhile, Wright had risked everything to expose the truth, working quietly behind the scenes to dismantle the scheme. "But now," Wright said, his tone resolute, "we have a chance to end this once and for all. Together." Molly and I exchanged a glance, both of us understanding the gravity of the situation. This wasn't just about justice anymore. It was personal. Every patient who had suffered due to the lack of medication, every life lost because of Gibson's greed. It all weighed heavily on our shoulders. We couldn't let him win. The sound of screeching tires and flashing blue lights shattered the tense silence outside the hospital. Police cars swarmed the parking lot, their presence both a relief and a shock to everyone involved. Molly and I stood frozen as officers stormed into the warehouse, guns drawn, shouting commands at the group of men who had moments ago been threatening our lives. "Hands where we can see them!" one officer barked, his voice cutting through the chaos like a knife. The tables had turned so quickly it felt surreal. Just minutes ago, we were hostages in this nightmare, and now justice was finally stepping in. Dr. David Gibson's face turned ashen when he realized there was no escape. He tried to protest, claiming innocence, but the evidence against him was overwhelming. When the officers opened the crates that had been smuggled into the warehouse, they found thousands of doses of stolen medication bundled neatly inside. It wasn't just proof of the drug trafficking ring. It was a chilling testament to how far Gibson had gone to exploit human suffering for profit. "You underestimated me," Wright muttered coldly as he watched Gibson being handcuffed. "I've waited years for this." As the criminals were led away, Molly collapsed into my arms, trembling with exhaustion and relief. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "It's over. It's really over." But even as I held her tightly, I couldn't shake the weight of everything we'd endured. The danger, the lies, the betrayal. Yet amidst all the darkness, something beautiful had emerged. Our bond had been reignited stronger than ever. Later that night, after the dust settled, Molly and I sat together on a bench near the hospital entrance. The air was cool, carrying with it the faint scent of rain. "Do you think people will believe us?" she asked hesitantly, her eyes searching mine for reassurance. "They have to," I replied firmly. "We didn't just uncover corruption. We saved lives. That's worth fighting for." As I looked at her, I saw not only the woman I loved, but also the fierce determination that made her unstoppable. And in that moment, I knew we could face anything, together. As the dust settled from the chaos that had consumed the hospital, I found myself standing alone in the dimly lit hallway. The weight of everything we'd been through, the danger, the lies, the betrayal, pressed down on me like a leaden blanket. But amidst all the turmoil, there was one constant source of strength: my father. His battle with cancer loomed over me every day, a reminder of why I couldn't afford to give up. Dad? I whispered into the phone later that night, trying to steady my trembling voice. I'm sorry I haven't visited much lately. There was a pause before he responded, his tone light but tinged with exhaustion. You're busy saving lives, aren't you? That's what matters. His words hit me like a freight train. For years, I had resented this place. The sterile walls, the fluorescent lights, the endless parade of suffering. But now it meant something entirely different. This hospital wasn't just a building. It was a sanctuary where broken hearts were mended. Not just physically, but emotionally as well. My own heart had been shattered when Molly left, only to be pieced back together here after everything we'd endured together. And though the road ahead for both of us remained uncertain, I knew one thing for sure. I owed this place everything. Molly joined me a few moments later, her presence grounding me in ways I couldn't fully articulate. Are you okay? She asked softly, her eyes searching mine with concern. I nodded slowly, then shook my head. No, I admitted, my voice cracking under the weight of emotion. I don't think I'll ever be okay again. Not completely. But maybe that's not such a bad thing. Maybe being okay means letting go of the people who matter most. Her hand found mine, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I allowed myself to truly feel, to let the pain and hope coexist without fear. That evening, as I sat by my father's bedside in the oncology ward, I realized how deeply intertwined our lives had become with this institution. Dad had always told me that adversity reveals character, and never had those words rung truer. Through the fire of corruption and greed, I had discovered not only the courage to fight back, but also the unwavering love that bound me to Molly and to this place. As I watched the monitors beep steadily beside him, tracking his fragile heartbeat, I made a silent vow. I would dedicate my life to healing others, no matter the cost. This hospital saved your life once, Molly said quietly, breaking the silence. And now it's saving mine too. She smiled faintly, her fingers brushing against the scar above her chest, a reminder of the surgery that had brought us closer than ever. Funny how things work out, isn't it? I chuckled despite myself, feeling the bittersweet irony of it all. Yeah, I replied, squeezing her hand gently. Funny how sometimes the hardest battles lead to the greatest victories. The next morning, I walked through the familiar corridors with a renewed sense of purpose. Every corner held memories, some painful, some beautiful, but each one shaped the person I was becoming. Albert greeted me with his usual enthusiasm, oblivious to the storm that had passed. Hey, pumpkin, he called out teasingly, earning an eye roll from me. Stop calling me that, I shot back, though there was no real bite to my words. Behind his playful demeanor lay a man who understood sacrifice better than anyone else. He had lost so much, yet continued to pour himself into caring for others. In many ways, he was my role model. Standing at the entrance of the hospital, I looked out at the bustling parking lot beyond. Somewhere out there, Dr. David Gibson was facing justice, while Dr. Donald Wright was finally being recognized as the hero he truly was. And here I stood, ready to carry their legacy forward. Not as a victim of circumstance, but as a warrior determined to make a difference. Let's get to work, Molly said, nudging me lightly. I nodded, taking a deep breath. Together, we stepped back inside, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Because this wasn't just a hospital anymore, it was home. Some people leave scars, others leave lessons. Burn and reborn stories that break you, then rebuild you.